The RacinBoys and Track Talk, brought to you by McCarthy Chevrolet and Olathe, with a $10,000 low price guarantee.
Scott, another big story here in Kansas City has to be young Trevor Hunt. He's joining us right now. Trevor, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I'm excited for what's coming up this year.
Well, that is the voice of the young man that won a big race as part of the King of America Nationals at Humboldt a couple of weeks ago. He led wire to wire, won $1,000, and impressed a lot of people. And when you talk about stepping up when the bright lights are shining, this young man did that. Just what were your thoughts heading into that race? I mean, you started up front. Were you confident that you were going to be able to do what you did?
Well, we ran the heat race, and we qualified for the redraw. And I was kind of nervous about the redraw because the past few nights we've been drawing good, and I thought, well, this might be the time that we might get a pretty bad redraw and start in the middle pack. But I drew the pole, started up front, and sitting on the grid, Dad came over and we conversed a little bit about what to do to the car because they had just reworked the front stretch, and we decided to leave it alone. And after that, we kind of talked about what I had to do on the start, and we figured that I might as well just get the jump on the start and try to get around the guy going into one. And it worked, and we led lap 1 and all the way to the end, and coming to the checkered flag, I was like, this is so surreal, and it hadn't quite hit me yet, but after I got out of the car and we got back to the pits is when it finally hit me that I had just won my first B-Mod race, and that was really, really cool to be on that big of a night at the final show in the King of America Modified Nationals.
Now, wait a second. You're 13. You're in the 7th grade. You talk like a seasoned veteran. You're not supposed to be doing this right now. Is that because when you got started, you've been doing this for a while now? I mean, how young were you when you first started racing?
I was actually 5.5. I saw a documentary on Jeff Gordon. He was actually my idol back then, and I really looked up towards him. And the documentary talked about how he started racing and his whole history in racing, and it said he started out in a go-kart. So I asked my mom right after that documentary went off, and I asked her, so when can I have a go-kart just like Jeff Gordon did? And that night she told Dad, after I had gone to bed, and the next weekend, instead of coming to work, Dad actually went out and got a go-kart, and we went racing. And
the rest, as they say, is history. Scott?
Yeah.
Hey, Trevor, Scott Trailer here. Congratulations on that win, man. I wasn't down there to see that, but it sounds like it was real exciting. In front of a huge crowd, too, as well. That's always fun when you get that big win in front of such a big crowd and all those great USMTS racers, too, as well.
Thank you, Scott. That is quite a feeling to get when you get a big win like that, and especially to be my first win in a B-Mod. That was a very, very special night.
Yeah. Hey, Trevor, let me ask you about last week, though. I did get a chance to watch you race Scotty Martin at Valley Speedway last week. You worked your way up there to the point when you got up there with Scotty. You even got around him there for a lap. But, man, you guys went side by side, lap after lap. I know you led wire to wire up there at Humboldt, but that race last week at Valley had to be just about as exciting as any race you've been in, hadn't it?
You know what, Scott? That race will be a race that I remember for a long time. Racing with Scotty Martin up there, that was so fun. I actually rewatched the video, and I seen a few times that I could have actually moved up in front of him and been able to win the race. But still, being able to race side by side with him for that many laps and having that many cautions just made it so exciting. I will remember that race for a long time.
You embrace that, being able to get out there and compete. Were you involved in other kind of sports that you were good at?
You know, I really haven't been able to play many ball sports, really. The only ball sport I've ever played was really soccer, and that was back when I was really young, playing pee-wee soccer. And I did a few swimming lessons every now and again. But I never really got into those two things. I never really got the adrenaline rush I got from racing. We actually had a point.
So what are you wanting to race here in the future? Are you wanting to move up to a USMTS type modified, or are you wanting to run just an A mod at the regional level, or Or are you thinking bigger? Obviously, everybody wants to make it to the top ranks of NASCAR, stuff like that, because there's a lot of money involved and a lot of cool things. But in the immediate future, what are you wanting to do?
We're hoping that about halfway through this year, if we keep continuing with the success we've been having, we're hoping to move up into an A mod about midway through this year and run a few races at the end. And if that goes well, we plan on making a few races next year. We plan on moving up into a stock car of some type on pavement or dirt.
Are you running any issues as far as age limitations at some of the racetracks? I know if you run NASCAR, you got to be 21 to run in the upper tiers of NASCAR racing, and 16 at a lot of other racetracks. Are you having any issues of being able to make any age limitations that some tracks might have?
Yeah, definitely. Last year, Valley Speedway was the first to give us an opportunity to drive a B mod. They said if you come out, you've got good control over your car, we'll let you race. But the first time we see that you might, be a danger to yourself or anybody else, we're going to go ahead and pull you off, and we're going to make you wait till our age limit. And we respected that and went out and kept our car control, and they liked it. And after that, it was more of a chain reaction. Going to Humboldt, letting us race, Topeka, Kansas, and that's also moved all the way down to where we're running the complete Ironman Challenge this year.
Wow.
The only track we're having troubles with is Lakeside, but we will get to run at Lakeside when the Ironman Challenge goes there with USRA, and so maybe after that we'll get another chance.
Well, talking with your dad a while ago, you got the right attitude about that, because you don't press the issue. Tracks have age limitations.
Yes.
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
And you just work around whatever different tracks have that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Every track's different. Like with Lakeside, their policy is you have to be 16 with a driver's license. Well, I'm 13 and I don't have a driver's license, so we respect that completely. A lot of other tracks have age limits from anywhere from 14 to 16 for a B mod, and but I think that this year is still going to be more of a year of earning respect with more of the drivers and some of the tracks as well. And we've already gained a lot of respect with a lot of drivers.
Let me ask you, yesterday we were on Between the Lines with Kevin Keesman, and this has been one of the themes we've talked about. It. We've been doing that segment with him for 14 years now, and we've always talked about young kids and when it's too young to drive a race car. And when I was growing up, you had to be 16 to race at any racetrack around here. I think Kirk said 21. You have to be 18 to run in the top 3 ranks of NASCAR. It's kind of standard policy that you have to be around that age or at least have a driver's license. When people that are naysayers that come up and they say, hey, or say something to your parents, say your kids should be 16 or something to that effect, what do you say to people that think that you must be 16 to drive a race car?
All we tell them is come out and watch us race. And when they come out and watch us, they see what we mean by that, and that some people who are my age who might drive race cars don't have complete control of their car, and that is the number one thing that my dad has kind of worked with me on. He doesn't want me going out to something that I'm not ready for, not having control of my car and getting hurt. So that's always been something that we've worked on, definitely.
Your dad sounds like a smart man, and I'm kind of like that. I said that yesterday on Between the Lines. I said, every kid at that age, their skill set is different than others, and you're an exception, obviously, to those skill sets to kids your age.
Yeah, I am a pretty big exception to that, but I try to keep myself as humble as I can. A lot of people that I'm racing with are older, and they've all came up and said, hey, great job, it was fun racing with you, look forward to next week. And we really haven't had any troubles with any racers trying to push me around because I'm so young and trying to get into my head. Everybody's been racing us pretty clean, and that's the kind of racers we are. I don't like to race dirty.
Isn't a lot of it the attitude that you do have? You got to stay humble. You gain the respect of the guys that's been racing out there all the time. That is really a big part of not having them try to push you around, because if you were, hey, how great I am and all this, they would try to play games with you and try to push you around a lot more, wouldn't they?
Yes, definitely. I mean, if somebody goes out there and they're really cocky about it and they're like, oh, I'll do better than you or whatever, usually, most of the time, they go out and they get beat, and when they get beat by somebody, well, then they get mad, and then it just kind of stumbles into a really bad deal. So by staying humble, one, you earned a lot of respect from drivers, and two, it'll help you with sponsors and stuff like that, because sponsors really don't want a driver who's going to go out there and just tear their race car all to pieces and not finish. The sponsors want a driver who's really going to well represent them, and that's going to, I guess you'd say, well represent their company on the racetrack as being a good company.
Trevor, you ever heard of a guy by the name of John O'Neill Jr.?
I sure have. He's actually the guy that we went and talked to, and he got us into our first B-Mod. We went to him. This was actually at the end of last year's racing season, and we asked him, do you know of a car that's kind of old, because we don't want to, my dad didn't want to put me in some top-notch equipment on my first run. He wanted to see if I could handle it first. Mm-hmm. And John hooked us up with a race car, and I went out and ran it for my first race, and he was out there with us, and he helped us on a lot of setup stuff to get the car where it needed to be for myself as an amateur in a B-Mod. And he kind of chiefed the car for those final 6 races at the end of the season there.
Well, let me tell you something, Trevor. I've known John O'Neill for 25 years. I remember when he was just about your age driving a street stock out at the old Lakeside Speedway. And I haven't seen you, but just listening to your voice and how you handle yourself right now, you sound a lot like John O'Neill Jr., bud. And I can't tell you, that's a huge compliment, because John has been one of the most professional drivers that we've seen for years around Kansas City, and the way he handles himself and he answers questions, and you've got a lot of those traits, it looks like.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Now, what's been the response of some of your friends in school? Do they come out there, think that's pretty cool of what you're doing?
Yeah, they do. I've really been I have a lot of friends in school. Not many of them come out to races, but I really don't push the issue. I mean, everybody in school knows that I race, so when I get to school, I don't really brag about what I did. I try just, I tell them how I did, and that's all. I don't brag about, I did this and I did that. And all the teachers know as well. The principal has been really nice with us as far as homework-wise. We've been gone. I miss a ton of school. For instance, last year, in the second half, in semester 2, I only went to school, as far as Fridays go, I went to school 7 Fridays out of the whole semester.
Wow. And
we had stretches where I'd miss a whole week. And I've always had a policy with my parents when we're racing that I can only get A's and B's on a report card. If I get a C on a report card, then I can't race until I get that C back up to a B. So there's always been a great incentive for getting good grades.
That's impressive. Now, what about working on the race car? You take a great deal of pride, I'm sure, by working on the car, learning the chassis, everything that goes about setting up the race car to make you go fast, right?
Definitely, yeah. Dad's always liked to keep me involved in what we're doing adjustment-wise on the race car. And when we get home, we always like to keep the car clean. He teaches me a lot of the maintenance stuff as well, like how to run valves on the motor. He's taught me how to do that. I can run the valves on the motor. Just simple stuff that I can do. All the heavier stuff that I can't do, that I'm not strong enough to do, he'll do for me. But everything else, he's taught me how to do, and I take care of it.
Interesting.
This is unbelievable, Scott. We're talking with a pro here. He's 13 in the 7th grade.
I'm blown away here, Kirk, to see how much thought you put into everything. And obviously, your dad has got a sharp mind and is leading you down that direction, because you don't get that on your own like that. So your parents, you've got to be pretty proud of what they've done for you here to get you where you're at.
Yeah, I consider myself pretty lucky to be driving race cars. I'm an only child, so I don't have any siblings. But I believe if I did have siblings, I probably wouldn't be. I probably might be racing, but I wouldn't be at the level that I am at now. Simply because right now we're running the B mod on everything we've got. If I had a sibling, we wouldn't be able to afford what we're doing. So, and obviously with sponsors, FVP, IXL, they're helping us out a lot. FVP is a brand of batteries and filters. IXL is a sports drink, kind of like a Gatorade. It's got a lot more potassium, a lot less sugar. They've been helping us out a lot lately. We just signed IXL on this year. FVP's been with us. This is their second year with us.
Yeah.
Now, did you work with Brian Brown at all with that FDP deal? Because that's his big sponsor, you know.
Yes, that is his main sponsor, but we do not have any affiliation with Brian Brown at all, actually. Dad owns a Goodyear shop. It's where we're at now in Smithville.
Right, and, I knew that, right.
He had been doing some business with FVP, and that's how we hooked up with them. He kind of went to them and asked them, hey, you want to sponsor our race car? And that's kind of how that deal came about. IXL they're based out of Kearney, and they were selling them at the school, and we figured we'd look at them. We'll look into that. And that's how IXL came about.
Trevor, can you hang with us? Another segment here. We're going to try to get a hold of Sammy Swindell, who is going to be down at the State Fair Speedway in Sedalia for a World of Outlaws event here, and that's next Friday night. So we'll check in with Sammy here in just a few minutes. Take your calls, 913-381-810, as we wind up our hour here at Hunt's Car Care in Smithville, where they've got the $18.10 oil changes today. Bring your car on up. They get you right in. They've got the best tire prices of the year here. We're located in Smithville, just off 169 Highway. Turn right at Amory Road and make a hard left, and you'll run right into us, Hunt's Car Care in Smithville. When we come back, Sammy Swindell, who's going to be down at the Missouri State Fair Speedway in Sedalia next Friday night. You're listening to Track Talk here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.